Good morning. Welcome to the Rangers Roost. This is a weekly stream where we get on, we talk to anybody in chat, and we kind of start the week with a look at where things are in my life or in geek culture or whatever bears mentioning. Creative questions, talking about the process. It's my birthday week, Ippy Looney points out. There's actually a lot happening right now. There's a couple of things that we're going to focus on in this Rangers Roost. The first of which is that Ippy Looney held a surprise birthday party for me on Saturday night. I was completely surprised. I was working on deadlines and had no idea that anything was happening, and people that I love showed up to my house, and I got really drunk. Also, I got presents. So we're gonna do some unboxing here on the stream. But before we get into that, I'm going to sort of finish the overview of what to expect from this Rangers Roost. So we've got some unboxing. And then we're going to talk about 80s remakes. Because this is a very controversial subject in the geek community. There's a lot of people with a strong opinions that there needs to be, more original content. I certainly agree. Um, and at the same time, remakes aren't necessarily new. I can't even guess at how many times the story of Dr. Faustus has been told. This is an ongoing thing in entertainment. But more to the point, I want to talk about the process of supporting other people in their goals. I've been asked to pitch on an 80s remake. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I will say, I'm doing it. I'm going to do my best possible work, and I want to talk about why and what goes into that, and how we arrive at the effort. So to begin with, my composer Dan Haggerty gave me a Ned B. Kenner action figure. Now you have to understand that Dan and I have our friendship was born in Star Wars. We started playing the Star Wars tabletop role playing game together in college. That's the foundation of our whole relationship. And we started hanging out when he moved to Los Angeles because I was writing some science fiction role playing games, and we played them together. Restoration is what we played first, and then we got into other stuff, and we've always had, interesting conversations, and over time we've become brothers. But it all started with Star Wars, and Dan knows that Ned B is easily in my top 5 droids of Star Wars. Last year for my birthday, we got a Ned B. Black Series action figure. What's that? Oh, Ippy Looney wants me to explain why I open action figures. It's because they're toys. And I don't really see them as collectibles. I have an action figure collection, but it's because I like action figures, and it's because I like those specific characters. And both of these are characters that I like. So these are both very thoughtful gifts. There's 2 action figures. The first, Ned B. Here we go, right? We're just going to get right in there. It's a little awkward to do on camera because the camera is not at a reasonable... The framing sucks. I'm just going to acknowledge that. Whoop. Okay. So there's a little... So here's Ned. There's also a little... I think this is just like extra information that they couldn't... It's extra legal documentation that they couldn't... There's a little... Ned B's got a lot of legalese. Yeah. What is this? Warnings and hazards, and they've got... I think the laws have changed since they made those packs. They have to put more stuff in there now. So he's got a little hammer. Because he's a worker droid, if anybody hasn't seen Obi-Wan. There's a lot of good droid design in Obi-Wan. Ippy Looney is very, very fond of Princess Leia's Lola. Lola's the droid's name. But okay, we're gonna put that in the trash. So here's Ned B. He's silent. He's hardworking. He's very focused on getting the job done, and he's a rebel. Doesn't care for the Empire. He's ready to do the work of deconstructing the power systems with his hammer and his blaster. We love Ned B. You know what I mean? You feel safe around a Ned B. He's a rebel robot, but he doesn't make a big deal out of it. My wife says I'm Ned B. So just do the work. Don't make a big deal out of it. Yeah, Ned B's definitely a Boston robot. Don't talk about it, just do it. That's Ned B. So Ned B is going to stand. I don't know if you can see, but we have a robotics action figure. Ned B's going to keep him company because it's lonely being a robotics action figure on my shelf with no robotics. No metal dinosaurs. So that's one of the toys that we got. The other toy that we got is an Alex Murphy action figure as opposed to a RoboCop action figure. Now, RoboCop is this is a gift from Gerard Marzilli. Gerard's a very old friend and an actor that I've worked with for years. A fantastic performer. If anybody doesn't know his work, um, I would recommend the Declassified series that he and I did together, which is on the Jump Rangers YouTube. You can find it right there. Gerard was also one of the key players in the Starmine record, which is also on the YouTube channel. RoboCop was the first movie I got so obsessed with that I couldn't stop talking about, and it drove my mom nuts. It made her really angry. At one point, we went on a vacation together, or not really a vacation, but my mom was a sculptor who worked with found objects, and we'd go to junkyards. We were in New Haven, Connecticut, and we stayed at the Marriott while she went junking. And those little boxes, they back in the 80s, the way you watched movies in a hotel was that there was a little box with push buttons, and it just had like an internal network, cable network, where they would just play movies at certain times of the day. You had to look at the schedule and push the button right before the movie started, and then let it play. And it was only available at that time. Every time we walked in the room, I pushed the RoboCop button. Every single time. My mom spent $400 on RoboCop on that trip and this was in the 80s, because I kept pushing the RoboCop button, and they charge you every time you push the button, not every time the movie plays. So Alex Murphy here, he's got. Anyway, I love RoboCop. I have on the shelf behind me, you can see, RoboCop's down there on the bottom shelf, and I've got Ed 209, which was my wedding anniversary present from Ippy Looney. RoboCop was a gift from Dan, a birthday gift from Dan several years ago. I'm fascinated with the character of RoboCop, I think, because in a lot of ways, RoboCop has the kind of strength that I demanded from myself as a kid. Also, a survivor of trauma, which is, I mean, this action figure has a splattered hand that you can attach to an arm that's been blown apart with shotgun blasts. It's a very graphic action figure. But the Alex Murphy comes just pristine and in his riot gear. You get regular Alex Murphy, and you get blasted to pieces post Clarence Boddicker screaming in his death throes Alex Murphy as well. You get 2 pistols. Those are hard to get out of the plastic. Wow. I don't want to break it. There's one pistol. Here's a pistol. Come on, pistol. There we go. We got it. So one of these might be a holdout gun, because the one's smaller than the other. I'm not sure if there's a holdout holster. He's got a holster. So now we're just down to Alex. Looks like there's a... Oh, I see. There's an elastic here, but I think it's pretty easy to break. There we go. There we go. We got him. I'm going to put all that packaging aside. So his face shield goes up and down. There's a lot of detail. Peter Weller plays RoboCop. This is a really good sculpt of him. And they have a Peter Weller head without the helmet on. And they have a Peter Weller head screaming in agony as he dies. I think the thing that I like about this action figure is that... What's that? Well, he died. Technically, legally, he died, which is why they were able to use him for RoboCop. If he hadn't died, he would have been he would have still had the right to make his own decisions. So they waited for him to be legally dead, because then he became company property and they could make him into RoboCop. The thing that's, I think, memorable about the character of RoboCop is that he's a person, despite being so thoroughly unmade as a person. He remains a human being, and this is the human being inside RoboCop. So I think that's kind of a neat thing to have. His hands come apart. I definitely think. Now, riddle me this, and this is probably movie accurate, because this is the kind of thing that script supervisors, as my wife will tell you, in feature films often miss. The man's gun hand is on the opposite side from his holster. Now, no. But what I'm thinking is that's probably... What's that? Oh, Luna's trying to bark at a squirrel. I'm absolutely convinced that that's movie accurate, and that's not a mistake on the part of NECA as an action figure manufacturer, because they are... He did this. Oh, he did do the spin thing. Well, yeah, he does the spin thing. Oh, you know what? He has 2 gun hands. Ipiluni's right. Ipiluni is correct. So, now, RoboCop may also be the least propaganda movie, because it absolutely paints the police as a tool of corporate power. There's no question about that element of the film. And at the same time, it also paints police as cowboys. I don't know. It's certainly a film with a lot of cool design and a lot of good imagery and some amazing makeup effects, and NECA makes really good toys based on it. I don't know. There's a lot about it that captured my imagination. I'd never seen anything that flagrant flagrantly um, violent on screen before. I know that was part of it, not just for me, but for a lot of people who love the film. But that's not the crux of it. I think the crux of it is the character of Alex Murphy and his efforts to find justice in a world where like everybody's making money by not having any. I guess that's relatable. And I don't think that was lost on Paul Verhoeven. Verhoeven is the director and who spearheaded the project with Alex Kurtzman, who wrote it, I believe. Um, is that right? I think so. Um, he's Paul Verhoeven grew up in Nazi Belgium, I think. No, the Netherlands. He's from the Netherlands, and uh, and it was during the occupation, so he was privy to all the Nazi propaganda, and his filmmaking has always been hugely influenced by that. He's made movies about it actually, including Black Book, which I love and I recommend. Um, but definitely that kind of viciousness and the anger that that inspires in a person growing up is very evident in his films, and it's part of what interests me about his filmmaking. So that's the unboxing. We got Alex Murphy. We got Ned B back there on the shelf. That's really neat. Those are both fantastic figures. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you very much. Um, so let's talk about 80s remakes just briefly because, first of all, you know, it's hard to make movies. It's hard to make money. It's easy to judge people for not embracing um, original content, but the industry itself is and in finance in general is becoming more and more risk averse and less rewarding of exploration. Film back in the 80s was a business enterprise. Oh, hey, Epi Looney. Do the uh well, I think that theater has been a huge resource for cinema, and I think people didn't know that these were plays that were getting remade. I think the same thing happens with novels a lot of the time today, where a movie comes out and people don't realize it's a book. I think that's a pretty common occurrence, and people tend to credit those movies in a different way than they do when they see another film or a television show or even a video game getting remade. I think people tend to think of it a little bit differently, and it's not. And I do think that going back to old content is part of the entertainment industry going back literally hundreds of years. It's never not been the case. The first plays, the first plays were about what? Not the first plays in well actually in Athens they were about Greek mythology, and then after the Golden Age ended and and Greece and Rome fell in the Dark Ages when they started doing theater again. What was that theater based on? It was based on the Bible. It took a really long time to get away from pre-existing content. And uh, I don't. It's not my Ippy Looney. Wants to have a conversation about Barbie and whether or not it's an original screenplay and whether Greta Gerwig's campaign for Barbie to be recognized as an original screenplay is just uh to me that's a 100 yards conversation. That's a green room conversation. Um, what I did say is something that was said to me by and to the internet by by Robert Cargill, who very eloquently explained that Barbie is a piece of content that has existed for nearly a century, and people have been writing about Barbie for nearly a century, and the writers who've created all the backstories of the characters, who've put all that information on the toy boxes, who did all the cartoons, who've done all the there's you could fill an encyclopedia with just synopsis after synopsis of Barbie content, and those writers deserve to be recognized. And it absolutely would suggest that those writers never existed to say that Barbie is an original screenplay. Now, whether or not that's fair isn't for me to say. It's for Greta Gerwig and the Academy to argue about. Like, and I don't want to invalidate Greta Gerwig's work, and I think that I think probably the motivation for having this argument would be that you felt invalidated by the idea that other people had done work on Barbie that's as meaningful as yours. I think it's equally distressing to think that other people haven't. But who's right and who's wrong? I don't. It's it's the Oscars. You know what I mean? They'll do what they're gonna do, and they did. So I'm thrilled for Greta Gerwig's success. I'm by no means am I trying to minimize that by saying that other people have done work that deserves note. you know, um, but I think the bigger picture, and then of course there's the risk conversation that we were just getting into, which is more along the lines of finance in our industry isn't film isn't an investment anymore. It's become a banking arrangement, and banks need collateral, and pre-existing content is collateral. That's just how it works. So you're going to see less and less movies based on original content until our finances get away from institutional financing. During the 80s, during the 70s, during the 60s, films were paid for with cash. And now they're paid for largely with soft monies. And what's not soft monies is cash from banks as opposed to cash from investors. Investors are there to take a risk and see if it works and make bigger money in exchange for that risk. That's not how institutional financing works. They want 5% on their dollar every year. And if they can get that, they're successful. They don't want you to try and make more at the risk of losing what you're making. They don't want groundbreaking stuff. So it's in large part it's a function of the financing of Hollywood today. All of that being said, finding the money to make a movie is extremely challenging. Producers each have to make their own judgment call on what risk is worth it and what they're willing to put in the work to achieve. If somebody wants to make a movie and they're taking responsibility for the success of that movie, it's up to them what is likely to impact that success. They can take advice, they can listen to opinions, but you either support their efforts or you don't. If you are working with the movie, then you have to support that person's efforts because that's the person who stands to lose the most if everything doesn't work. So for me, you know, somebody comes to you and says, "Do you have anything for this?" The question becomes, how can I help the goals of this production? Do I have any? Do I Are the goals of this production worth supporting? Number one. And number two, if I agree that they are, what can I do to help make this project as successful as possible according to the terms of the producer? How can I help achieve the producer's vision of success? Because fundamentally, this is a team sport and somebody has to lead the team. If it's my production, then I'm determining what the goals of that production are, and I'm looking for people to help me who can realize those goals as effectively as possible. And one of the things that Impy Looney and I are always saying is, if there's somebody who can do that better than you owe it to the production to make sure that person gets noticed because it's for the good of the show more than anything else. And so, it's not always the case that everyone walks in with that kind of attitude, but when a movie gets greenlit, you have to assume that the people who are working on that film are working towards the best interests of that movie with as much diligence as possible until it's proven otherwise. You have to give every production and every group of people the benefit of the doubt until they don't deserve it anymore. Okay, and and so to me, you look at a film based on pre-existing content as an opportunity to help the people making the movie, and that's always how you should look at a potential gig. You should always first and foremost approach it as a way of supporting the cast, a way of supporting the producer, and a way of supporting the director with the best possible material. You want to set all of those people up for success, because if they're not successful, how are they going to go produce original content in the first place? How is that ever going to happen? And um, and that's kind of my foundation in approaching this process. It's something that I've been revisiting in my own ethics and in my own ideology and in my own hopes for the future of the industry. Um, and it just seemed like an opportune time to sort of walk back over that territory and discuss it. Um, I don't know. Is there anything to add, Ipiluna? You got any other curveballs? That's a no. uh-huh. It's not a no. It's an I stopped listening to you. Is exactly what Ipiluni just said to me. So thank you very. Ipiluni loves me. Um, look, there's a stream. You want to celebrate my birthday? We have a we have a rookies stream at 2:30 today on this very channel on twitch.tv/Jump Rangers. The rookies is an ongoing actual play Jump Rangers stream where um, we get into the nitty gritty of Jump Rangers with players who have never played the game before. It's also all new content. Metagame is something where I'm playing through a lot of the content that I've already written for Jump Rangers with Ipiluni and Federico and any other people who are involved in the development of Jump Rangers who want to get in on the game. And we do this because um, it's important for us to engage the game. It's important for us to engage the audience, and it's an opportunity for people to see us talk about the game as people who are making it, and to see that we're not great at our own game. I mean, that helps too. The rookies is the opposite. The rookies is very much just a joy of tabletop role playing kind of stream with people who love it, and not that we don't. Obviously, we do. We wouldn't be making these games, but it's an opportunity to see Jump Rangers played by people who play games all the time, and it's it's been a blast. I highly recommend that you swing by. There's always a little bit of Star Citizen nerdery between myself and Buster and Liz as well. Um, and it's a big week for Star Citizen nerdery. There's just briefly, I will say that thanks to the efforts of people at CIG, cyberspace is now infinite. That's the facts. Read about it. A game company, an independent game company, did this. Amazing, and my profound congratulations to everybody working with Chris Roberts on Star Citizen. This is huge, huge stuff. It's going to change the games industry. It won't change it right away, but expect it. And I don't know. We're going to be at the theater tomorrow. Can't really imagine a better way to spend my birthday than at the theater. I'm, Ippy Looney's challenging my semantics. I stand by what I said. Was Thank you very much for watching. Come by at 2:30. Check out the rookies. I think you're gonna have fun. I know we're gonna have fun. And don't be a stranger, Ranger.